think we're going live. I have another person coming in the waiting room, but I'm going to direct them to social media, okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome, no problem. Okay, Joe, you're live.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to WCEG Network, the Worldwide Community Empowerment Group, live here on the People's Choice with your host, yours truly, Joe Flint, all one word, like a tribe called Quest. Ladies and gentlemen, I have with me tonight some of Georgia's finest, if you will, two of Georgia's most prominent, if you will, and without a doubt, South Fulton's most prominent young ladies are with me here this evening on the show, and we're going to just get down to the nitty gritty this evening. We're going to talk about this election season and what we have at store. First and foremost, I want to let you all know that early voting has started today. And if you have not already exercised your right to do so, you still have time. I encourage you at all costs to early vote. It is a very good and safe way to ensure that your vote is cast and is counted. If you are like some who'd like to wait till election day for the excitement, then that's fine. But I do encourage you to early vote as soon as you can. So without further ado, I want to introduce two young ladies here with us here on the People's Choice on WCEG. I want to start with Ms. Matthews. Ms. Matthews, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I want to make sure I understand you are the President CEO of the South Fulton Chamber of Commerce. Is that correct?
That is correct, and it's a pleasure.
I'm in high cotton today, this evening, and President and CEO. You know, that's not something you get to run into every day. And ladies and gentlemen, you're very familiar with this young lady's face. She has been with us before, and she has joined us again. Ms. Kathy Adams, who is the co-chair of the Social Action Committee for East Point College Park Alumnae Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Incorporated, if I said that in the right phrase. So I want to welcome both of you so very much for joining us this evening here on the People's Choice here on WCEG Network. So let's start with you, Ms. Adams. First of all, so good to see you. It's been a while. So glad to have you here with us. Tell us about what's going on. I mean, every time I look on my social media, there's Kathy Adams right there. So I can't imagine that you don't have a lot going on. Please fill us in on what's been happening.
Well, there's a lot going on. The East Point College Park Alumnae Chapter, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. We've been trying to educate the public, educate our voters on what's going on, to make sure that they are in tune with what's happening in and around them.
Right.
In and around their communities, you know, outside of COVID, outside of unemployment. We have a lot of other issues that are going on. The social injustice, the economic injustice, the racial injustice. And I tell people all the time, if you were downtown, if you were marching, you didn't have to go downtown to Atlanta to march. If you were marching in your community, if you were marching somewhere, you've been impacted by the leadership of this country, and you need to vote.
Right.
So we've been educating our voters and, you know, people in our communities on what's going on, not just on who's on the ballot, but what's on the ballot.
Got you.
And what's at stake.
I'm glad to know that we have a voice in Kathy Adams for that. And I want you to notice I wore a red shirt today because I was talking to a Delta. So I want to make sure it was understood.
Well, thank you.
I'll be entertaining Delta today. How about it? So two Deltas then. There you go. I didn't know. So now I know, Mrs. Matthews. So I'm glad I wore my red. I told you I was in high cotton this evening, y'all. So Mrs. Matthews, tell us about the South Fulton Chamber of Commerce. Let me tell you, I've been interviewing some of the most important people here in South Fulton lately, and now we have the most important person, President and CEO of the Chamber of Commerce. So please inform us what the Chamber of Commerce in South Fulton has been up to.
Okay, well, your South Fulton Chamber of Commerce, which represents all 8 cities within South Fulton County, we are probably what you would call a mid-sized chamber with about 500 members, but of those members, the majority are African-American owned businesses. And these businesses have looked to their chamber for assistance during this time of COVID. Trying to keep their doors open, trying to get PPE loans approved, you name it. the whole nine yards. And so our chamber has spent a lot of time during this period of putting on webinars and sessions that are helping our business people be able to survive what we're going through.
Gotcha.
We are also encouraging them, we did regarding the census and about voting. It is crucial. We have to make the changes that are needed. And so we've spent a lot of time with that. And we're just pleased that Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated was kind enough to ask us to partner with them on this. And that is really reaching into the entire community, residential as well as business community. So that's kind of what we've been up to.
Well, I thank you ladies for inviting me to be a part of this, because really this is the work. I've had the opportunity to work with the Deltas in the past. And if I tell you there's an organization out here who really pushes for voter rights and for voter education, I can honestly say unequivocally that the Delta Sigma Theta Incorporated group is absolutely, or sorority is absolutely out there doing the work. I did a march to the polls with them several years ago, and I'd never seen so many red pumps in my life out on Martin Luther King, and they were getting it, but it was a wonderful time and I enjoyed it. So ladies, let's get down to it. So we have two very prominent races, well, we have several prominent races that are taking place in Georgia, but specifically for us this evening, we have the U.S. Senate races that seem to be, you know, of high importance. Well, they are of high importance. And I'm glad we're talking about the Senate races, because quite often people ignore the Senate and U.S. House of Representative races because of all the focus on the U.S. president race, you know, which the president, of course, is a very vital role, but very few people understand that the legislation that takes place, the laws that take place from the people who serve us in the Senate and the people who serve us in the House. And so quite often they are kind of overlooked. People will go and vote, but they don't understand just how important that vote makes to their society, their backyards, and everything else. So where are the Deltas currently in this race, and how are they pushing, or what's the work that's taking place with Delta Sigma Thetas in pushing for and advocating for this Senate race?
Well, because we're a nonpartisan organization, we're in the middle of the road. But what we want to do is we're offering up a platform to all of the candidates that are running for office to give them an opportunity to speak to their constituency. And by doing so, we've said, hey, there are 23 candidates who are running for the U.S. Senate seat.
Right.
We'd like to hear from you. If you want to serve as our leader or our next leaders, tell us why. Tell us why you think our vote is most important to you. I will tell you that our service area, we are predominantly, you know, people of color, and we serve all of Clayton, all of Fayette, and portions of South Fulton County. That's a pretty large territory. There are a lot of votes there, and it's an opportunity district for all of the candidates that are running to, again, get on board, participate, share with their constituency, voters, new voters, some of our super voters, some of our seasoned voters. Tell them why you think you're most qualified. We don't want to hear about who didn't do what and, you know, what's going on, but why are you most qualified to serve in this environment in this day and time? But we've also extended that opportunity to the 5th congressional seat candidates as well. Right. So there are 2 candidates that are vying for the 5th congressional district, and we've offered them the same opportunity. We're going to host the forum in the same setting. We'll have our congressional candidates go first, then we'll flip the forum, and then we'll focus on the U.S. Senate candidates. But again, it's just about providing a platform so that the constituency, the voters can hear from the candidates because there's so many. Right. But then also enable them to ask questions. Right. So we will take some questions from, you know, from our guests that evening.
You mentioned something, Kathy, I think is probably the most profound statement that I've heard, here in the election season, or that I've heard in any election season. More often than never, when we have candidate forums and we have candidates get together to express, their reason for running, more often than never, there's always finger pointing, and we don't hear enough of what their platform is. Right. And so when you said, an opportunity for them to share who they are and what they can do is huge, it's epic. We see it every day here on the national scene, with the presidential race, all the finger pointing. We hear it in every commercial ad, all the finger pointing. And it's one thing to get the facts out there, and I have nothing against the facts, but tell me what it is that you're going to do as a candidate that's going to improve my life and the lives of those that affect me and the lives of the people in my community. Mrs. Matthews, how is the Chamber of Commerce effectively engaged in this election season, and how are you all partnering with the Deltas?
We're partnering with the Deltas as part of our engagement of giving our members and the business community an opportunity to hear from these candidates. Just as Kathy has already said so eloquently, it's an opportunity for them to hear what they want to do for us, not an opportunity to finger point. It's not that type of format. And so that's one of the main reasons that we were thrilled to partner on this, because you just don't have that many opportunities. I've attended other forums and it turns into a debate, and it's all the finger pointing, and it's a turnoff, just like it's a turnoff nationally. This time, they don't have that shield. It's if you're there, then there are questions that will be asked of you, and our people that are participating, that are coming to listen and to see this, are going to have questions answered, and they also have an opportunity to ask questions as well. So I think this is more of, to me, a unique opportunity. So hopefully, hopefully a lot of people will get questions answered that they've been trying to get answered and just don't know what your platform is.
That's where it boils down to: questions answered. We hear so much rhetoric about what you didn't do, what I didn't do, and so on and so forth, but we never, ever really get the questions answered. And I got to tell you, we've watched, I assume you all have watched the debates here lately.
Correct.
And I don't know that we got any questions answered. And I'm just going to be honest, in the vice presidential debate, although both of them were very elegant in their speaking, no questions were really answered. And I got to tell you, Senator Harris, she did a very good job, but she was doing what I like to think that some preachers do. We tell a story, and then at the very end, we give you just what you need to know from the message. But she did answer, but she would just tell a story before she even got around to answering the question. But overall, it's hard pressed to really figure out what the platform is sometimes, because nobody is really giving the answers, but rather rebutting what has been said. How many candidates have actually, signed off to come and participate in this forum?
I'm glad you asked. Well, I can tell you today, out of the 23 U.S. Senate candidates, 13 have accepted.
Oh, wow, that's good.
And out of the two congressional district candidates, one has accepted. So we will have a very good forum and allow, again, the voters to hear from the candidates. We really want to point it and position it so that they're sharing their information. They're talking about their vision. In this time of distress, with the economy down, with the job situation down, with healthcare, at its peak, there's so much discrepancy about that, with the pandemic going on. We need to talk. They need to hear from the people. They need to hear from the voters. So we are going to open up our chat lines, and we're going to, field those questions and have the candidates talk about it.
Do you all feel at all as if, in keeping with this same conversation, do you feel at all that you know any of the platforms of the candidates that are running, specifically, and I know that, the organization is nonpartisan, but specifically to the front runners. Do you believe that you have heard or even understand what their platforms are?
I only know what I've seen on the commercials, and that's what you get a 2-minute
right
snippet of what they are talking about, but more so it's about their personal issues. On a higher level, some have been it's been a pointed finger back and forth.
Right.
They're taking jabs at one another. So I don't want to hear that in this platform.
Right.
This is an opportunity. We are engaging some of Georgia's voters, and we hope that we broaden the audience enough. We cast our net to invite everyone in to hear from them. And if you have a burning question, ask that question so that we can get beyond all the rhetoric. We can get beyond the finger pointing. We can get beyond who didn't do what and where they're going or where they're not going. But we just want to hear, what is it that you're going to do for the people that has not been done or that needs to be done differently?
Right. Mrs.
How
Matthews,
are you going to help us in this time of need?
Absolutely. That's the critical part. What are you going to do to help us in this time of need? Mrs. Matthews, from a business perspective, how will the elected official, whomever he or she may be, how will they affect the businesses? I'll just say of Georgia, but specifically of South Fulton. How critical is this role to the South Fulton Chamber of Commerce, to the business owners in that commerce?
As far as the candidates,
Yes.
answering questions, it's crucial for these business owners to learn what their platform is and how they are going to be able to assist them should they win moving forward. It's a dire situation for many of these businesses. Many of them were turned down for the PPE loans. Some of them have actually closed. Others are just hanging on by a thread right now. Property management companies are finding it very easy. They receive the PPE loans themselves, but the businesses that are renting from them, their tenants, they're not passing any of it on. And so many now are receiving notices that you either pay up the grace period that I gave you, or you move out in 30 days and all of this. A lot of this is happening. So they're coming to hear what is your plan? How would you do it differently if you win? Because as I said, this is about the stability of their business, but also the stability of our community. Because if too many of our Black businesses go out of business, it affects all of us here in South.
Absolutely correct. In keeping with the red shirt here, I understand that the Deltas have been advocates for well over 100 years, and they go back to working to promote women's rights in the women's suffrage campaign, a campaign in which many, well, if not all Deltas were not even allowed to actually vote at the time, specifically because of their color. How is it that the Deltas continue to be the forefront of such, an American right, a God-given right? How is it that the Deltas continue to get out there in front of all of this?
I just have to say, because I know Kathy's going to answer this, but I just have to say this, because the main reason I became a Delta is because of service.
Got you.
Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated is all about service.
Right.
That's the difference. And we mean that. If you're looking to join Delta Sigma Theta, we're going to find out what service have you been involved in. So it's like the heartbeat of our entire sorority. I'm very proud of that.
I believe it. Kathy?
Yes, and women need to understand, and Joe, you hit the nail on the head. We haven't always had the right to vote. While we marched in the suffrage parade, we weren't able to vote. We weren't able to vote until 1965. So I'm telling all my young people, and I can't say it loud enough and over again, that don't take this vote for granted. If it wasn't important, they wouldn't be trying to steal it.
Right.
Voter suppression is alive and well. We saw that in 2018. We saw it in 2016. We're seeing it now. We saw it earlier this year during a primary.
Right.
So we don't need to take that for granted. For all the people, again, that were out there marching earlier this year, march with a purpose. Don't march because you're mad.
Right.
March because you want to see change. You're gonna vote to make change happen. That's the only way change happens. And the Deltas have always been in front of those things. And Diane, you said it well. We've done a lot of service work. We continue to do a lot of service work. Our platform has changed significantly since the pandemic. We are 100% virtual. We've had to be creative on how we get our messaging out and how we continue to educate and support and help our community. Right. And our arms are far reaching. We reach wide. And we continue to partner with a bunch of organizations and other fraternities and sororities, the Divine Nine, to help get the messaging out, to help educate our voters. We cannot sit this election out. We cannot afford to sit this election out. Right. And I can tell you, give you some statistics, because 800,000 voters are new voters. Since 2018, there are 800,000 new voters that have come on board. 49% of them are African Americans, and 46% of them are under the age of 30. That says a lot about where we go and how we get there. I can tell you all the candidates that are running for the U.S. Senate office and for the 5th Congressional District, they need to come to this forum. They need to participate, because those percentage numbers speak to this service area. And then we are in the backyard of the world's busiest airport.
Oh yeah.
That's another reason to come. Come talk to us. Talk to us about economic development. Talk to us about employment. Talk to us about healthcare. Talk to us about equality and socialism. Talk to us about these hardcore topics. Right. But bring to us a platform and a vision. Tell us what you're going to do differently that's not been done.
That's huge. Differently what's not been done. I have to tell you, ladies, I had a very proud father moment this morning. I know I look 18, but my 18-year-old actually this morning voted for the very first time. Wow. And she made it a point. I'm going to be honest, I was still asleep when she was at the poll at 8 o'clock this morning. I was still in sleep, and I just so happened to roll over and look at my phone, and she was messaging me, taking pictures, and she literally updated me every step of the way that she was going to vote. And so, what happened, it was kind of a nostalgic moment. And I thought back to when they were much younger, my daughters, when they were much younger, and I would take them to the polls with me to vote. And I would show them, and to see and she just turned 18 in September. So to see her exercise her right without me even having to say, go out there and do it, was an extremely proud moment. It's part of me thinks I'm going to push her to be a Delta. I think that, doubt for her to end up being a Delta, because she did it on her own recognizance. Of course, I planted the seed years ago, but to see that, come to action on its own without me even saying anything was really a proud father moment for me this morning. And if that wasn't enough, she texted me back. And, I kind of encouraged her and told her, this is something you remember for the rest of your life and so on and so forth. And her message back to me was, there was a young lady, Daddy, who was blogging, and she asked me, what did I feel like? In her words, my 18-year-old daughter said, I felt taller. Blew me back. Blew me back. So there are, kind of to your point, Kathy, young people are listening, but we have to make sure that we convey the message to them in the right way, and understanding that, this is a matter of your future. And, some might say it's a matter of life and death, but it is a matter of your future. Ladies, anyone, the Electoral College, or what do you think of that? Is it holding back the popular vote? Is it something that we should get rid of? There are people who believe that, if we take away the popular vote or if we only use the popular vote, then it'll never be fair. But if we continue to use the Electoral College, it is fair. And I think, in my opinion, that has gone away. because the reason why the Electoral College came about in part was because certain states had more people, in their districts of voting. So of course, back in the day when this first started, of course, California, Texas could sway any election. But now, the populations in every state are, not the same, but they're all in the millions. And so, is Electoral College outdated? Is the popular vote more needed? How do you see this?
Well, and I'm speaking on behalf of Kathy.
Listen, these are always the views of Joe Flint and nobody else, trust me.
I think they need to do away with the Electoral College.
Yeah.
Because I think it is outdated.
Yeah.
And I can tell you probably 90+% of the voting population doesn't even understand what the Electoral College is.
They don't.
And what their function.
They have
All
no
they
idea.
know is that they get one vote and they
Mhm.
want their vote to count.
Right.
Correct.
If we don't shift this thing and do away with the Electoral College, then people get twisted about the popular vote.
Right.
And the first thing they do is they say, but my vote doesn't count.
Right.
Because
right.
somebody else is going to shift it in a different direction. The Electoral College is going to take it away. So when I stood in line for 5 hours or 4 hours to go vote, it really won't count.
Right.
So I think we need to do away with that old philosophy. We need to do away with the Electoral College. Let the popular vote count. This, hasn't become a problem today. It's an issue. It's a thorn in our side that we've dealt with year after year.
Yes.
But I can tell you, if you recall, the Al Gore race that we dealt with, the Electoral College. George Bush ran a second time. It was the Electoral College. We need to really pull away from that and rethink how we're engaging our voters. If a group of people is going to make the decision, then why do you want us to vote?
Right.
Because that's what people are going to say. Why do you want me to vote?
Kathy, I joke with it. It's not serious, but I do joke about this. If my brother was the governor of the deciding state back in 2001, I would have won the presidency too. George Bush.
Right.
There's no reason why I wouldn't have won. But of course, to your point, the Electoral College, it makes a huge difference. Huge difference. Ms.
I just have to say that totally agree with what Kathy said, because it's already shown itself to be outdated and unfair.
Right.
And yes, absolutely. There are still people out here who are saying that they are not going to vote because of the Electoral College. But the way things have transpired, it's so evident to anybody that's really looking to see that your vote counts.
Yes.
But, in the end, it's up to the Electoral College. This is why we are where we are right now. And so, yes, I think
that the Deltas may need to add to their agenda with their national day, or don't correct me if I'm wrong, or when they go to DC. Maybe that's something that you all should add to your agenda. When you get to DC and lobby, for whatever the right is. I think lobby against the Electoral College. And I think that's a bigger conversation that needs to be had. And come to think of it, it's never even had on a national scale. At least I can't think of my years that I've seen from the presidential election or anywhere where they've mentioned the Electoral College. When I lived in Michigan for a while, there was a big push for term limits on the state legislature. And some people were of the belief that term limits already existed by the vote. But then there were other people that said, well, if that was the case, then we wouldn't have people that are serving for 40 and 50 years, in the same spot. So, that's kind of the same thing with the term limits. As far as the forum is concerned, will there be questions or concerns that you all, the committee or the forum chair, will have already in place? And the reason I'm asking this question is because I want to know, are there any concerns or questions about referendums that will affect the state?
We do have questions that we will have in the pipeline.
Okay.
And will there be any about the referendums? I don't recall right off that are top of mind.
Gotcha.
But we will certainly focus on issues at hand.
Right.
Things that are impacting the citizens. not just here in Georgia, not just here in our counties, but across the nation. And we're looking at longevity. You know, what happens beyond Election Day?
Right.
You know, what do we do when we start talking about coexistence? For example, pre-existing conditions.
Right.
In healthcare.
Right.
How does COVID impact that?
Yes.
You get COVID, you got a pre-existing condition now.
Right. Right.
So are your legislators going to focus on pre-existing conditions? Are they going to focus on, you know, healthcare for everyone?
Right.
You know, Medicaid expansion. How, you know, in the state of Georgia, we know it's a challenge.
Right. Right.
Now what? We're education now is a challenge. I can tell you, well, you know, out of all that's going on with, you know, virtual learning for our children in the school systems now, and some are, you know, starting to phase in their back to school, you know, in-person learning.
Right.
We've not really heard from that state school superintendent.
Not at all.
You know, a lot of people
Not
understand. He isn't that's an elected seat.
Yes, it is.
That is not appointed.
Yes, it is.
Where is he?
Right.
And why can't we, the people, hear from him?
Right. Right.
You know, we really need to hold, you know, our leaders accountable. That is the main reason we're hosting this forum. Right. To hold our leaders accountable. If you want to serve as the next leader, and we need to understand, this U.S. Senate seat, these are 6-year terms.
Yes, they are.
6 years is a long time to impact.
Very long time. Very long time.
Livelihoods. We need to hear from you. And this is called accountability.
Yes.
I want you to come to the table, be accountable, hear from the people of color, how their lives are being impacted, their jobs are being impacted, their taxes, their health care, their children's education.
Right.
And then all of these issues they're not even color-based. They're impacting everyone, directly or indirectly.
Right. And that's the, I will say that, you know, there is, of course, always a focus on, you know, for lack of a better phrase, brown and black people, but these are American issues. Absolutely. These are not, you know, just issues that focus specifically in my community, your community. These are American issues that need to be addressed by everybody. Is one group affected more than others? Absolutely. Yes. But these are issues that have to be addressed from a national perspective and not just from one. Something that, you know, always amazes me, and I go back and forth with this. You know, I had a rant the other day for about 20 minutes, maybe 25 minutes on Facebook. I did. And, you know, I kind of talked about the House in the U.S. or the House and the Senate. And how, you know, they represent districts, but very seldom do you see them in the district. You know, I don't know if this is a question that you already have, you know, prepared for the forum, but I would press, you know, the candidates about this because, you know, I lived for years in the Cascade community. And for years, I would see, matter of fact, I just want to tell you, y'all drew me right outside of the city of South Fulton line. I was like right there, but they drew me out. I thought I was going into a new city, but they drew me right out. So I blame your people for not allowing me to be part of the city of South Fulton. But for years, and everybody knows the 285 Cascade corridor, every election season, everybody who is somebody who's running for office will come right there and stand there with their signs, and you will see them all up and down that corridor. And half the time, I'm like, who is this person? I've never seen this name before, or for that matter, this person doesn't even come. I don't see them out in the community. I don't see them doing anything in the community. So it's very pressing that, you know, and I know that you'll do this, Kathy. I've watched you moderate before, but it is very vital that we press these individuals to be present in the communities for which they represent. Absolutely. And some will say, oh, you know, people don't come to the meetings and this, that, and the other. Well, you got to think about it. There are people who are working sun up to sundown to take care of whatever the needs that they have to take care of. They can't come to everything like they want to. They have children who are playing soccer or basketball and this, that, and the other. So they're concerned about the everyday lives. What happened to the William Holmes Borders, who would park his Cadillac on the side of the road and walk through downtown? What happened to the Maynard Jackson who would park his Cadillac on the side of the road and walk the communities? Where are these representatives? Why don't they do this anymore?
You know, that's $1 million question, because I can tell you a lot of them that are on the ballot, we really don't know them.
Yeah.
The voters don't know them, we don't know them, and that's why
Right.
they need to come to this forum.
Right.
I don't want to hear about you on television.
Right.
And then that's only 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes snippet. I don't want to hear about, you know, your highlights, and I don't want to hear about somebody poking jabs at you. But what about that person who has not been elected, who now is running for a seat?
Right.
Who may not have the money to have a television commercial, you know, to present themselves. So yes, where are they in the community?
Right. Diane, you
where are these candidates who are running for office who have declined to participate?
Right. Where are they? But
want my vote?
I was about to say, but they're still asking for your vote.
It's another issue. Right.
I only get one vote.
Right.
I only get one vote.
Right.
Want my vote, but you don't want to come talk to us.
Right. That's huge.
And I say us because it's not just me.
Oh yeah.
Right.
No,
It's
you're
not
right.
just
You're
you.
right.
And
Diane,
it's
you mentioned, and I'm saying it right. It's Diane, correct?
Yes.
I love the spelling of that. If I were having children, I definitely think I would spell it.
Thank you.
But you mentioned earlier about PPE and the businesses and how, and I didn't think about that, but you brought something to light. The property owners who own the what do you call it?
Retail plazas and business
plazas.
Buildings.
They've gotten the money, but weren't able to get the money, and that's a huge issue for them. How do you think? How can a U.S. representative or a U.S. senator make a huge impact on something of that matter?
When they're putting that together, that bill together, that is going to grant the PPE. They need to make it broader and look at what they're putting in there.
Right.
Prime example, also making it close to home for, Chamber, Delta Sigma Theta, any nonprofit.
Right.
If you were not if you were 501c3, you're okay. If you're 501c6, like the Chamber, we're a membership organization. You're not qualified. You're not eligible. You're not going to get it. And the same is true with so many small businesses. They were finding out that even though they had all their documents together, because we're giving them seminars and teaching them how to fill out the application and all of this, and they're doing everything just right, and then they get the word back.
Right.
No real explanation. Sorry, but you don't qualify.
Right.
But your landlord has gotten more than one.
Right.
And because it depends on where they are, where their business is. I know of some that they got one main one, and then because they lived in a certain city, a certain bank in that city made sure that they got more.
Another one. Wow.
And yet their tenants don't get anything and are facing eviction right now, because we're going into that period now.
I never, when you mentioned that, it took a moment, the wheels were turning, but then it finally registered. I never considered the fact that, those landowners, those shopping center owners have gotten the money, and possibly the ones that are, in the businesses there can't do it. I was in Mississippi over the weekend, and I walked through a mall called North Park Mall, which is a very prominent mall in Jackson, Mississippi. And, as you mentioned that's immediately what I thought about, because there were a lot of shops that were still closed inside of that mall. Now, granted, the state may have some orders, as far as the COVID is concerned, but there were a lot of shops that I could tell that were not the Macy's, the JCPenney's, and whatever, that were closed. And I'm almost 100% sure, because of the example that you just gave, that's why they couldn't be there. That's amazing. Accountability. How is the voter accountable? Is there any accountability for the voter, and any accountability that the public has in this election season?
The accountability that I see that our voters have, the public has, is to be educated, to read, get information for yourself.
Right.
Don't just depend upon your favorite news outlet on TV.
Right.
But read and find out what is really going on, and find out who these candidates are, because as you said, many of them, we don't even know who they are.
Right.
You know of them now because they're running. So as a voter, as a tax-paying citizen, it's your job to make yourself knowledgeable about this so that when you do go to the poll, you know what you're voting for, including these referendums that are on the ballot. Don't just skip them. Too many people have told us in sessions, well, I just skip those. No, you don't skip those. It's important, but you just have to do a little work to go look up the bill and research it and see what it says in there. And then you know which way to vote. So there's a lot of accountability. We can't just sit back. As Kathy said earlier, this election is too important.
Right.
Too many people died, suffered, went to jail, you name it, for our right to vote. And when we go vote, we need to vote knowing that we know about this person that we're going to vote for. We know about these issues that are on the ballot, so that it's an educated, informed vote and not just a vote. I know one person that said that they just like to write in friends of theirs on everything. If they don't know who it is, and they just write in.
Right.
Go look them up.
Right.
And this is social media.
Right. You can find anything.
Right. Exactly.
Right. Kathy, I think you were going to respond to that as well concerning accountability.
We are accountable as citizens. Voting is our civic duty.
Yes.
And people are always vying, they're always running for offices, and they're always wanting us to vote for them because, again, popular vote, electoral vote, electoral college. So either way, we need to do our civic duty. We need to go vote. If you've got a beef, if you want to see change, you want to see something done differently, you want your taxes to go down, you want better schools, you want charter schools versus public schools, you want transportation, you want a new traffic light, you've got to vote for the right people whose visions align with your visions and the values of your family.
Right.
And John Lewis says, in his words, get into good trouble. Don't just go march. Don't just make noise.
Right.
Use your voice. Your vote is your voice.
Right.
That's how you make change happen. You've got to elect qualified leaders. We can't vote by color. Oh. We can't vote by gender.
Hallelujah, somebody.
You cannot vote by gender.
Yes.
You've got to vote for people who are qualified to do the job.
Right.
We can't sit here and go, well, I'm gonna vote for this person because they're this color, they people of color, and they're this, that. You better vote for the best qualified leader to do the job.
Right.
The Senate seats are 6-year terms. That's a long time.
Right.
A long time.
Some years ago, and I won't mention his name, but some years ago, a civil rights leader made that statement, and I was honestly turned off by it because his statement was vote the black slate. And I was like, really? Granted, I'm all about us making, forging our way and doing something worthwhile. But I got to tell you, I haven't always seen us doing right by us. So, why would I vote specifically the black slate? And I am of the belief that, and I've said this, and again, these are the views of Joe Flint and not WCEG. Let me make this known. But I'm of the belief that I vote, as you said, Kathy, for the candidate whom I best believe is going to serve me. So if that candidate is a Democrat, I vote for him. If that candidate is a Republican, I vote for him. I'm an independent voter. So I vote for the candidate whom I believe is the best for that. And I'm not telling anybody else to vote that way. That's how I vote. But that's how Dyan mentioned, I'm educated on that person. And so I know what they stand for and what they've done in the past. And so I'm not going to vote just one ticket based on this or one ticket based on that. And we have a lot of people out here today who are so misinformed and vote just because of that. And, we mentioned referendums. I remember that I failed. I felt a little bad. I failed to go over them with my daughter when she went to vote this morning. And I thought about it after. I was like, oh my God, I forgot to talk to her about the referendums. But I said to her, I said, read them to your best ability. And if you believe that what it's saying is what you should do, then vote yes. But if you don't believe it, then vote no. But make sure that you read it so that you can at least understand it. She's a senior in high school. She's got SAT words. She knows what this stuff means. I may forget what it means now, but she has ACT and SAT words, so she gets it. But yeah, so when we consider accountability and we consider, you know, the referendums, it's hard sometimes though for the general public to understand what it means. And so it's very important, and I think you all will echo this, is that sample ballot is so important for people to go back and research it before they go to the polls.
Absolutely.
Which is why I personally encourage early voting, because you have this opportunity to, you know, read and go through, because on the day of election, now, and I'm not saying everybody does this, but there are a lot of people who go on their lunch breaks, maybe go immediately after work, and they just honestly haven't had the opportunity to go back and read those referendums or amendments that are there. And so, you know, it's very important. And I want to say, Diane, you mentioned, I think you said Google it, you know, Google these people's names, Google these amendments, the information is there. Will you, Kathy, because correct me if I'm wrong, you are the moderator, correct, for the event?
That is correct.
These people have no idea what they're in for. You should have been moderating these vice presidential debates that we do. Yes, I've watched you at work. I know
and see if we can get some answers, you know,
right.
some questions.
Right.
Yes. But so let me share this with you.
Sure.
One of the things that the Delta has done is we pulled together a document, and I particularly worked on this with a team of ladies, and it's called Know Before You Go.
Right.
And on that document, it's a one-sheet document, front and back, and it lists the amendments and the referendum, and it lists a link to the actual bill itself, but it lists the details of the bill, and then it has, well, here's what yes means, and here's what no means.
Right.
And so it gives you a little bit like the pros and the cons of that. And so we've shared that, you know, we pushed that out in our network, and, you know, we wish we could push it even further. But it helps. And I've had a lot of friends today call and say, hey, I got your document. I'm standing in line. This sure is helpful.
Right.
And because they had an opportunity to really read it and say, well, I didn't consider it that way, or well, I didn't look at it that way either. Right. And they get a chance to make that decision before they get to that ballot box.
Right.
So, you know, we pulled together that one sheet document that's called Know Before You Go. And again, you know, I always say, and people know me, that, you know, one of my taglines is know before you go. Yeah. Know who is on the ballot. Right. Know what is on the ballot. Right. Know when to vote, and know where to vote. Right. And that's most important, because I can tell you all too often, a lot of people don't know where to vote. They don't know when to vote, because they don't know, you know, don't throw in a special election or primaries and things like that. If you're off cycle with the voting dates, then it becomes a little sticky. Now we know that November 3rd is the date for this election. Right. But guess what? There will likely be a runoff. Yeah. So again, you got to know when to vote. Right. We've got some special elections out there. Right. Guess what? Those runoff dates are not going to be the same, you know, so it's going to be a little sticky. And where to vote. I always tell people, download your sample ballot. Yes. Go to the Secretary of State's website. Right. Put your information in there, and voila, it'll pop up and it'll tell you your precinct, who your legislators are, what district you're in, what Senate district, House district, county district you live in. Right. You know, that's valuable information. But it also, if you've mailed in an early ballot, it will also tell you, it can track the progress of your ballot. Right. You know, so it'll tell you what. I didn't know that until, I don't know if it was, I can't remember, I watched somebody post that on their page recently on Facebook. I didn't know that it was tracking the ballot. Now that is amazing. And I you know, as much as I preach and push voting, I was a little sad that I didn't already know that. But
that is amazing that it tracks the ballot. And I was very, very happy to hear that. And I just want to echo something you're saying. And this kind of goes into my next question or statement about a voter plan. You know, it's, you know, I never thought that you really had a plan to vote. I just never imagined that there was a time in life, or there would be a time in life, that I had to actually make a plan to vote. But
Joe,
I
in
guess,
this day and time, it's a must-have.
right,
You
right.
know, I've talked to people today. My aunt called me and she said, hey, I went to the convention center. I got there at 7:15 this morning. I wanted to be early. And I said, okay. She said, but I didn't get to vote until after 9 o'clock. I said, what happened?
Jeez.
She said, well, my plan was to get there early,
Right.
right after they opened,
Right.
because I thought I was just going to beat the crowd.
Right.
Said,
Right.
but they weren't prepared.
Mm.
The machines weren't set up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then I had to stand in line. She said, a good thing I had a folding chair in my car. I went back to my car and got my chair when somebody helped me place in line. And
Right.
I had a little snack with me. So you got to plan for the unforeseen.
You're absolutely
You don't know
right.
what's going on. I've seen some things on Facebook today that said Wolf Creek Library they were off the chain today. I don't know what happened over there.
There were issues in Fulton County, which I'm not surprised, but there were issues issues in Fulton County this morning. My daughter was the one informing me of that, and I was just like, oh my God. But I, you know, she was not willing to walk away. But I told her, and I said, you know, I told her, I said, just be prepared as you get ready to do. This is something that is going to happen all the time. And I got to tell you, it's an embarrassment to me as a resident. Well, ladies, I'm no longer in Fulton County. I now live in Clayton. But it's embarrassing, and it was an embarrassment that for years Fulton County has always been the target and the butt of every joke when it comes to elections. And I'm just like, what is really going on?
That goes to accountability.
Right. Right.
Do we have the right people in office? Because when you get to the local levels and you get to the counties,
right,
you have elections and registration boards.
Yeah.
Do we have the right leaders in place?
Right.
But and not to give them an excuse, Fulton
Right.
County is the largest county in the state.
Yes.
But to continue to have this problem year after year, election after election,
cycle. Yes.
we got to get it right. There are other municipalities across this nation, larger than Fulton,
right,
that don't have this issue.
And get it done immediately.
They get it done.
Right.
Yes.
But again, we're in that Southern Bible Belt, and voter suppression is alive and well.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and that's what I was about to say, not to let Fulton County off the hook by any means. But we also have to factor in however many years you want to go back, it is a target. The county is a target.
Yes.
And
Yes.
based on who's sitting in that Secretary of State's office and in different positions, even at the county level,
Yes.
There's been collusion and corruption and making sure that maybe machines were not working that the state sent and things like this. Yes, we have to hold them accountable and make sure that we're voting the right people into these offices, but also we need to be holding the state legislature
Absolutely.
and the governor's office accountable, because that's not happening. Everybody just focuses in on that.
Yes.
Now, I too am no longer in South Fulton County. I'm in a neighboring county.
Yes.
And I just happened, because we were planning to vote today, I just pulled the sample ballot for my husband. And I just happened to notice that the time was different for early voting where I am. What?
Yeah, same for me.
7 a.m.
Yes.
What are you talking about? We were going to be there at 6:30, right?
Right.
The thing I looked, because they weren't opening until 8, and that on different weeks it's going to be different time.
Right. I noticed that today as well. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So all kind of games are being played
Right.
right now, and we have to be vigilant.
Whenever we come into this election cycle, and again, not letting Fulton County off the hook, but I have to say this, my historical mind always thinks that the ghost of Jesse Helms, Richard B. Russell, and Strom Thurmond are somewhere in the background doing something to continue to suppress these votes here in the Bible Belt, as you mentioned, Kathy, in the southern states. And it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
Yes.
If here's a question. Let me see. Can voters, and this is very important because I was thinking that today, and as you mentioned, Diane, I saw that today. If the voters vote in other early voting precincts other than their own? Are you aware of this at all? Can they only vote in early? Can they only early vote in their county precinct, or can they vote in other county precincts for early voting?
No.
I think I know the answer, but I was wondering if you thought about
I
that.
would think,
I think
I thought it had to be your
think-
county, but I could be wrong.
Your
I
county.
think you have to stay within your county, but you
Yes,
can
yes.
go to these multi
Right,
large facilities
right,
and early vote, but it's got to be within the county.
right. That,
Like,
but, you know,
I live in Fulton. I can't go to Clayton County and vote because
right,
Right.
right.
Yeah.
There-
Exactly.
It seems to me, though, that if during early election, we have all these places open that people in their county can vote at these sporadic places, why don't we have those same places open during the general election? You know, you don't always see, at least I haven't always seen, because during early voting, well, I guess what I mean is during early voting, you can vote at any place. You don't have to go to your specific polling location. On election day, if I'm correct, you have to go to your polling location.
That is
Right.
So
correct.
there needs to be communication or some wording to our elected officials. Why not have that same open opportunity on election day to vote in your county at any precinct? Why do I have to only vote at this precinct? Because if the information is based on my information that I put into the system, when I put my card in, it should populate the people that would be elected in my district.
If the system works right.
Yeah, that's
That too.
that's where it is. Got to be more careful.
You know, with technology at hand,
Yes.
you know, we've had some glitches, there are gremlins in the system,
Right,
and things
right,
like that. So, yes, but that would be nice, and it's nice
Right.
to have. But again, that goes back to accountability.
Right,
Those are
right,
things that we should ask of our legislators, our state legislators, our House representative and Senate members, and you know, take it to them.
right, right.
For voting convenience, why is it that we cannot vote across the state?
Right,
You know, you want to vote in person. Suppose I'm traveling on that day. I had a pop-up business trip.
right,
I'm going to be in Savannah on election day, and I did not early vote.
right.
Well, I didn't get an absentee ballot. I'm
Right,
sorry,
right,
because I thought I was going to be in town, and so now I'm finding out that I'm going to be in Savannah.
right.
Now what do I do?
Why doesn't my information automatically pop up to allow me to vote in my?
Absolutely.
That makes complete sense to me.
Because when they put your ID and information in that computer
Right.
to verify who you are,
Mhm.
your ballot pops up.
Right, exactly. So there's no reason why we can't do that. That's
No.
as our Arsenio Hall would say, things that make you go,
Right, right.
Well, ladies,
Exactly.
we've come to the very bottom of the hour of the show, and I've honestly enjoyed this conversation. We must do this again. But I want to ask you, as we get ready to close out, any parting words, you know, to the candidates, to our voters, to the nation, because again, this is the worldwide community empowerment group. So of course, you know, Canada is not voting in the U.S., but you can absolutely get your opinions and wording across this spectrum here. So any closing remarks, Diane?
I would just say to the candidates, it's time for you to let us know what your platforms are and what you're going to do, and not the finger pointing constantly
Right,
and
right.
attack. And to the voters, I would say, educate. And as Kathy put it, I forget exactly how she put it, but it meant not only educate yourself, but going to the polls and being prepared.
Right.
You've
right.
got to be prepared. Without that, you will get messed up or get turned off, and we need you to vote.
Right.
So
Right.
that's it.
Thank you so
Vote.
much, Mrs. Matthews. Thank you, Kathy.
Sure.
Well, you know, with this, I'm going to leave this with the candidates, because I have to say, if you want my vote and you want our votes, you need to come and talk to the people. You need to share with the people why you want them to vote for you.
Right.
Why is it that you want to be the next leader? And a leader never runs.
Ah.
Come to it. Come to the community.
Right.
Talk to the voters. And as a voter, I say it's your civic duty If there's something that you want to see differently, you want it done differently, you hold these legislators, our policymakers, hold them accountable at all levels, municipal levels, state level, and the federal level.
Right.
Hold them accountable. But in order to do that, you've got to vote.
Right.
It's your civic duty. But when you go vote, know before you go.
No.
Know who is on that ballot. Know what is on that ballot. Know when to vote and know where to vote. But just vote.
Jessica. Kathy, can you give us the information on the forum once again, please?
Absolutely. It will be on Tuesday week, October 20th from 6 until 8 p.m. And go to eventbrite.com and register. We'll send you the link. Join us via Zoom. And we'll have it on Facebook Live as well. We'll stream it live. Get engaged. We have 14 candidates that are participating. Of the 25 candidates, 14 have agreed to participate. We'd love to have them. We want to hear, you want to hear from them. You got a burning question, attend, participate. Come and ask that question. Hear the candidates. We're not going back and forth. This is not a debate, and we don't want to talk about what has been or what was. We want to talk about what is in front of us, and we want to be able to hold them accountable. Again, these are 6-year terms for the Senate seat. The congressional seat is a 2-year term, but that's okay. We have 2 African-American females who are vying for that seat.
Yes.
Come and hear from them.
Right.
Hear what they have to say.
Right. I love it. I love it. Ladies, thank you so very much for joining us this evening. Ladies and gentlemen of the listening viewers, I want to remind you, if you live in Fulton County, that the State Farm Arena is open and you are able to vote inside of the State Farm Arena. And you should go. And I'm just going to tell you now, this place has been remodeled since then. But when it was first opened, my father's company helped paint the inside of there. So go to help in my father's memory to do so. I want to thank you all so very much for joining us here this evening. It's been a pleasure. It's always so good to see you, Kathy and Diane. It's a pleasure meeting you. And I look forward to hearing from you both as well. Ladies and gentlemen, we have been live here on the People's Choice on WCEG Network, the Worldwide Community Empowerment Group. And we have had with us this evening the President and CEO of the South Fulton Chamber of Commerce, as well as the community, and forgive me, Kathy, if I say it wrong, but the community advocate, the community associate, the community person for Delta Sigma Theta Incorporated, who has been with us. And ladies and gentlemen, I got to tell you, if ever there was a group of women that I am always proud to somewhat be able to rub shoulders with, it is definitely the Delta Sigma Thetas. I'm not saying anything bad about anybody else. I got to tell you, the work that I have seen of them is tried and true. And if you don't know anything else, they had one of the greatest Deltas at all serving in the nation, Miss Dorothy Hyde herself. So ladies and gentlemen, please know that that the Deltas are out here and that they are really, really doing a fantastic job. So I want to thank you all so much for joining us. And I want to thank the listeners for joining us tonight here on WCEG, The People's Choice. Good night, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.